Alrighty, it's your boy Zxous, and we're back with another Goddess of Victory Nikke video. And in today's video, we're finally going to be doing the July 2023 must-have tier list endgame, of course, that for units that you need on your account to, you know, be successful on Nikke. Now, obviously, this is going to be uploaded on what, June 29th. But I mean, we have no new characters coming, so it doesn't really change anything, right? But of course, this is actually being recorded after Neon's buff as well. So this is after Neon's buff, a tested buff, of course. And yeah, but we're gonna go in order, right, from release. So we're gonna start with Rosanna, and then Mary, and then Neon, right? So first off, Rosanna. Now, Rosanna was unfortunately a disappointment. Now, the reason why is, well, before we get into all that stuff, make sure you guys subscribe and like, of course. Try to get 30 likes, 40 likes, 40 likes minimum. If y'all want a Scarlet skin from Nikke themselves, then 100 likes. KW. But, yeah, so of course, Rosanna was a bit of a disappointment in the game. Because, you know, she is by far, at least to me, the best looking character in the game, right? No question. But the problem is she is, one, a PvP character, and two, a character who barely works in PvP, right? This is a character that needs such an investment for her to start working, and that's why she isn't all that great. So obviously on her first skill, after landing 120 normal attacks, herself, right, she gets concealment, right, which basically prevents her from being the target of single target attacks for 10 seconds, and then of course loses it when she gets hit by an AoE skill like ultimate or a rocket launcher. Now again, there's multiple characters who have this. I think what's her name, who have this, Viper has this basically, right, on this her skill 2, which is the vampire skill or whatever it's called. The problem with this, right, character is that she is meant for PvP. And if we actually pull up Pridewind's tier list, which actually does a great job at showing these you know, I think great rankings for their tier list, in PvP all the top characters are rocket launchers, right? Jackal, rocket launcher. Noise, rocket launcher. Rapunzel, rocket launcher. Anne, rocket launcher. Noah, rocket launcher. The only one that's not a rocket launcher is Scarlet and Alice here, right? And then even in Burst 2, I think Biscuit, rocket launcher, right? Senti, rocket launcher. And who else? Who else is a rocket launcher? That's really it. But right, mainly these characters in SS are being ran. So a character like this has no value in PvP when they're just gonna lose this instantly, because rocket launchers are AoE shots, right? But the nice part is when you get into the battle, after landing 10 normal attacks, 2 enemy allies with the highest attack get their 5 buffs dispelled, right? Which is good because it actually is a direct counter to Jackal. Right, it's a direct counter to Jackal, because Jackal gives like insane buffs to 2 enemies with the highest, or 2 allies with the highest attack, right? So it is the direct counter, but it's still not going to be good enough in the long run, honestly. Now the second part of her skill is a bit iffy, right? Essentially, she gets stronger for the more Nikke's out of action. Now this is where she becomes quite good, but you need the investments, right? Especially if you have her at level 10. If I was to have her at level 10 and then I was to have like a R character or even 2 R characters on my team and they died instantly at level 1, she would get a massive attack buff. Then she would use her burst skill, get rid of the attacker enemies, and then we would win, right? It would be quite nasty, honestly, especially with the new cube that gives burst generation as well. The what's it called, Requiem cube, I think is what's called. That cube also, it will be very, very nice for a comp like that. But the problem is she needs what's it called, investment, right? Because also when Nikke, not even an ally, but just Nikke on your team or their team, the enemy's team, when they die, you also fill burst gauge by a big amount, right? So it's kind of a cheat. You don't really need all that big burst generation, but it's going to definitely help you get it as soon as possible, like literally within seconds of the game. It's quite nasty. And then the first part, she gives herself concealment just for free, but again, it's for 5 seconds instead of 10, but it's not really all that great. And then her burst skill does nice damage, right? 1,300 to 2 attacker enemies, and then deals an additional 500 if she's under concealment, right? So the problem with this character essentially is just that her kit is quite good in PvP, but the problem is she doesn't work because of how PvP is, like how it works, right? Rocket launchers everywhere, having to lose your enemies, all that stuff. It's not the greatest, right? Unless you have her invested. So this is a character that you honestly do not need whatsoever. This is like the last character you need because she's not very good in PvP and she just doesn't work in PvE. If her whole kit is a PvP based kit, it just has no value in PvE, right? None at all. So there's that. Now we have Mary, who is a better unit, right? Now she's obviously a character that is a limited, so this is going to be more I mean, it's not really gonna matter unless you're like watching it right now while her banner's out, because if once her banner goes away, it's not gonna matter because you're not gonna be able to get her again. As of right now, that's what we know. But she's a great healer, right? She's a niche character where her whole kit is either healing or supporting water-coded allies, which isn't great because water code is the worst codes they have in the game as of right now. They don't have any DPS really, any attacker DPS that is actually good or anything like that. It's a bit of a joke, right? But her heal alone makes up for like the stuff you're losing when you're not using her with water code allies, or if you're not using her, because her second skill, which increases water code allies strong element by a certain percentage every time you use it, only activates when you use her burst skill, right? And in her burst skill, you increase attack for only 3 seconds on a certain percentage for water code allies, but all allies actually have their max HP increased by 27.87% at level 10, right? So her second part of that burst skill is quite good, and then on top with her healing, she's a very, very good character just in general when it comes to the healing alone, especially in PvE, right? Because when you're increasing your max HP on top of healing based on your final max HP, which is being increased, it's quite nasty, especially when you use the burst skill the second time, right? There's a lot of characters who have this kit, and it's usually never really that great for everyone, but hers is quite good. So there's that. This girl is, even if you are not using her for a water code ally support, her as a healer does wonders. And honestly, when it comes to things like union raid and solo raid as well, where you need multiple healers, and even if they do end up adding an element, like there's no question, if they add an element tower, she's going to be a must-have. So right, so I'm actually just going to slap her in must-have supports. Not really ranked here, but I guess, like, if I'm being honest, I'll put her like maybe here. People consider her the best healer in the game. I'm not 1000% sure about that. I see it and then I don't, because I'm just used Rapunzel way too much, but we'll leave it like that. It's not really ranked, but just don't mind the placements. And then yeah, that's really it. For Neon now, Neon is a character who on release was just garbage, got buffed, and is still just trash. Like, it's so weird, right? Because essentially before her buff, she was never doing damage, right? Because she would do more damage with her normal attack, which means you were never supposed to use her burst skill. Because if you used her burst skill, then she would do less damage than if she was to use her normal attack. The problem is, if you don't use her burst skill, you no longer have a skill 1, because the skill 1 only works when you use her burst skill. So before her buff, she was only being ran with the normal attack and the skill 2, right? That's it. And then skill 2 only works if you're fighting fire coded enemies, because it's a strong element. And for people who do not know, strong element is more damage against characters you're effective against. And because she's a water character, that would be fire. So obviously she's not all that great, right? Already, right? So niche, so situational. You have to use her either against bosses on her first skill, which increases the damage part, or damage 2 parts, which only bosses have. So if you're not fighting a boss, you no longer have the first skill in general. And then if you're not fighting a fire coded enemy, her second skill doesn't work, right? But her kit in general, when you read it, it's supposed to be good, but her number multiplier or something is just not adding up. I think strong element just doesn't hit as hard, right? But I swear D, who also has the same thing, does outrageous numbers. But to be fair, her strong element is going well over 150%, I think, if not like just around there. And then with her buff, they made it that now you can actually use her burst skill, but it's barely any more damage, and it's still not that great against a 1v1, right? Against fire-coded enemies, it's quite good, right? Like a mob. I think, honestly, your best way to use this character, your only reason for using this character is against fire mobs, right? Because against a one-on-one with her against a fire-coded boss, she's not doing the damage. And like, I can't, unless you fully invest into her. And honestly, if I was to tell you to fully invest into Neon, I might as well tell you to quit the game. I would never tell you to fully invest into such a garbage like this. Right, but if I did, then if I tell you to invest into Neon, then I'm telling you to quit the game. Literally. All right, that's how, like, she's so bad. So there's that, right? She's a character who needs a full investment to still be okay at best, or to finally start doing what she's supposed to do at just halfway investment, which is the standard for most players, right? Getting them level 5 skills, right? Overload gear if you need to, but level 5 gear, T9 does just great, and then they're cubed, right? But for me to give her 10, 10, 10, full overload with great stats is not really that good. Not to mention all the support under the sun for her to start doing damage is a bit outrageous. So honestly, if you want my honest opinion, she's not a character you need either. Not whatsoever. I wouldn't tell you to summon for Neon. I wouldn't tell you to summon for Rosanna post or after, post or pre-buff. And that's the term, post and pre-buff, I think. Mary's the only one who ended up being very, very valuable, and most likely will have the most value, especially if they do decide to add the water code, or not water code, but element tower, right? Because Mary is a limited character. When they add element tower, because mobs are going to be there, actually, Neon will become a lot better. But as of right now, that's not a thing in the game, so I can't really tell you to do that. Now, obviously, there was characters who got buffed, so let's fix our placements here. Now, I think we already moved Solene and stuff. Guillotine is another character that I'm going to put at actually, I want to say must have DPS, but I think I'm going to put her at high could have DPS. She's very, very good, but I wouldn't tell, like, Solene is a character I would tell people, okay, if you have her, kind of just invest into her because she's very good, right? The only thing is you need a healer with her. Guillotine is also kind of like that. I've done my testing. I've seen whale testing, and even whales don't really recommend it 1000% like Solene. That's why I'm kind of like just putting her here and could have DPS. But I don't want to say she's a must-have DPS, but could have could have DPS, very, very low must-have DPS, honestly. I mean, she's a better DPS than some of these characters here, so maybe I will put her must-have DPS. But I'll put her at the end, right? Remember, if you just skip to the end, then obviously you're not gonna hear my reasoning for Guillotine. But for me, I would put her in could have DPS, but let me know in the comments if you guys want her to be a must-have DPS. And then besides that, who else got a buff? Just Brid is really not needed. She's good, but not needed. Crow, no. Ipeno, no. And yeah, I think this is what I'm gonna have for the July 2023 must-have endgame tier list. So you guys let me know what you think. It's your boy Zxous. Let me know who we do move around, and then obviously when it came to Sakura and Ludmilla, we all agreed in the last video that we're gonna keep them there. So whoever you guys want to move around, whatever has the most upvotes or a lot of replies or whatever, and I read it and stuff, then we'll move them in the next one, which is August. So it's your boy Zxous. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.